Welcome back to the Johnversations Podcast, the only podcast where we do talk about Bruno. As always, I'm your host, John Connor, saying thank you for spending a little bit of time with us this week. Hope you guys are happy. Hope you're healthy. Hope you're feeling safe and strong. COVID is still very much a thing, so hope everyone who's listening is doing well. If you are a new listener, you found us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or clicked a link on YouTube, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for checking us out. If you're one of our longtime listeners, you're with us every week. Again, super happy to have you back. Thank you for being part of the Johnversations Podcast family. If you're a new listener, longtime listener, whatever, you guys know the spiel. Go ahead and hit pause. Head over to Facebook. Follow us at Johnversations, Instagram at Johnversations, and on Twitter at @Johnversation. Again, you can find all the links in the show notes below, or you can head over to johnversationspodcast.com and follow us there. Again, would love to hear from you. Would like to know what you like about the show, what you think. Again, would just very much like to have your feedback and to have you be part of what we do. Also, when you're at the website, again, johnversationspodcast.com, please do us a favor, leave us a review. You can leave a review on Apple Podcasts, or you can just write a review right there on the website. The more people that review us, the more people that share the show, the bigger the audience gets, the bigger guests we get, things like that. We want to keep making the best content we can for you. So please, please, please make sure you share the show. We're not asking for money. We're not asking for, your dollars, your cents. We just want a little bit of your time. So feel free to share the show. This week's guest, guys, I have to tell you, I've been super nervous about all week. I'm a huge fan of what she does. She is the author of Hell in the Heartland, Murder, Meth, and the Case of Two Missing Girls. The book also has a docuseries out that you can watch on HBOMax. It is called Hell in the Heartland, What Happened to Ashley and Laura. I'll be sitting down this week with the incredibly talented author, Jax Miller. Super, super excited. She joined us to talk all about the book, to talk all about the docuseries. So again, hope you guys have as much fun listening to it as I did having the conversation. Like I said, I was a little nervous, so I was rambling a little bit in my questions. So just going to have to bear with me. So again, thank you guys for being here. Thank you for checking us out. Thank you for your support. Let's jump into the episode. Jax Miller, thank you so much for being here. I have been so excited. First of all, when you agreed to come on, I think my jaw hit the floor a little bit because I found your work. I watched the docuseries that we're going to talk about here in a minute, and I'm not a big reader. I have attention deficit problems, but I've been listening to the audiobook, and I'm a huge fan. So thank you so much for being here and spending time. Before we jump in, I just kind of wanted to ask, how's your day going? How you feeling? And again, thank you so much for doing it.
No, thank you. I'm very excited. I love it when people reach out wanting to learn more about this story. And my day, it's been an interesting day because everyone in my house just got a positive test for COVID. So that's happening now and today. I've been vaccinated. I have had COVID. So far I don't have any effects, but I'm trying to help everyone else right now get through this.
Oh yeah. I'm glad that you're doing okay. And hopefully the family is doing okay. We had a scare here. My daughter was running a fever and got this weird rash, and they were like, "Oh, she definitely has COVID." And then the test came back, didn't have COVID. So it's we're just kind of playing that like eventually we're gonna get it game. So it's like
that's how everyone here is too. It's like, okay, here it is.
Well, I really appreciate you doing this. And before we jump into Hell in the Heartland, because I really want to talk to you about that, because the way that you write about it, the way that you presented it in the docuseries is just so compelling. And I really get a sense, especially through the audiobook, that there was something about these two girls that really connected with you. And it's funny because you're born in 1985, right?
Mm-hmm, that's right.
Okay. So we're the same age. I was born in February 1985. So like when that story happened, I know I was in like 8th grade. So I definitely want to get into that. But before we talk about that, your first book, Freedom's Child, you rode across the country on a motorcycle, and then you went to Ireland to write the book and things like that. But what is it about writing or what is it about telling stories, whether it be a true crime story or something like Freedom's Child? What is it that kind of compels you to want to be a storyteller?
You know, I'm pretty open about this, but like I think it makes people cringe around me. But you know, I actually found writing while kicking dope in rehab, and you know, I was going through a very hard time, of course, you know, because there's so much to quitting and becoming sober. This is years ago. This is in 2008, I believe. Yeah, 2008. And, you know, I was going through a really hard time, and I was angry, and I was going through all these emotions. And one of my counselors said, "Have you tried writing?" I said, "Get the fuck out of here. Like me, a writer, come on. Like, look at me. You know, I'm this, I dropped out of school in the 10th grade kind of thing. I'm no writer." Right. And, he's like, "No, try it. And I'll never forget this. He was a God-fearing man. He cringed every time I used the F word, which I would do on purpose because I was a little brat back then. And so I wrote him the most violent, profane thing I could think of. And I said, "Here, there you go. There's your writing, okay?" I'll never forget. He took off his glasses and he wrote it, and he leaned forward and says, "That was the best fucking thing I ever read." And I think just having that like vote of confidence that says, okay, well, maybe this is something. And so from then on, every week I wrote him a new chapter. And that's how my first unpublished book came to life. Was, you know, he when I got sober, replaced all that need for escapism, all that need to numb myself was kind of replaced with writing. And that's what I do now. I write, and that's how I cope. That's how I get through life. It's therapeutic for me. It's cathartic for me, as long as there's a healthy balance.
Yeah. And that's a very inspiring story, because it's, you know, and having friends and family members who have kind of gone through that same thing, you know, not becoming writers, but, you know, having these habits that we need to kick and spending time in these places. You know, there's a lot of people that don't really find a talent in that, you know what I mean? And so when you look back at it now, is it one of those things where you're like, well, like, thank God I was there in that moment at that time, or else I never would have had, you know, this career that I have now?
You know, I never really thought of that, but I'm a firm believer when people are struggling or they have hangups and addictions. I really think you can take all that pain and anger and hurt and all that junk inside of you, and if you can find a way to channel it, you're ahead of the game. I mean, I think it's so important to find what you're good at. And, you know, I had no aspirations of being a writer before that. You know, everyone I talked to, I've been writing since I was a kid. And I'm like, no, not me. You know, I kind of started from this place of desperation, but I really think from those places of desperation, that's where we find ourselves. That's where we find our outlets and where we can channel things. So, you know, people, I don't know. I don't know if I would have found it otherwise, you know, had it not been for that specific counselor and that time and that place. I don't know, but I'm just glad I found it, because I really do love writing. I really do.
Yeah, I think that comes through a lot in the work that you do. You know, like I said, I have a very hard time. I have ADD. I've had it, you know, diagnosed with it when I was a little kid. So like when I sit down and try to read a book, I remember trying to read Harry Potter and they were talking about an owl, and I was like, oh, owls are cool. Like they can animals whole, and then they spit out and I was like, what the fuck was I reading? And I have to go back and like reread the whole page. So the thing that I really enjoy about the audiobook is that you do so well, or what I enjoy so much about your work is in the audiobook, when you're describing, like there's a section where you're describing Kathy Freeman like making breakfast, and like the cigarette smoke, and like half of it being from, you know, sausage and gravy, and half of it being from, you know, her Winston, and just listening to it, I can see it all in my head. Like it plays out like this beautiful film. And I found myself just being like, okay, I got to get to the end of this book. Cause like, it's the visualizations in it were just so, like when you're talking about, and again, we'll kind of get into the characters, not the characters, but the people. But like when you're talking about Danny Freeman, you know, being at the river, looking for arrowheads and, you know, shoot, it's like, I felt like I was there walking with him. And so I think, you know, your love of what you do really shines through in the work. And I think that's what made it so easy for someone like me to be like, oh yeah, I want to hear this whole story. So just wanted to again say thank you, because I've really got sucked into it. And like I said, from watching the docuseries, I watched the docuseries first and then was like, I need to check out this book because I was just so intrigued by the story. So Hell in the Heartland, it is murder, meth, and the case of two missing girls. It's about the disappearance of Ashley Freeman and Laura Bible. And there is a story of murder and drugs and possible police corruption and failed investigations. It is just super, super interesting. But I wanted to start by asking you first, like, what was it about? Because there's so many true crime stories out there. You know, there's so many cases that you could write about. What was it about this particular case that you were like, I'm going to go from writing not like this super well received novel to now I'm going to do true crime? Like, what was it that connected you to this?
You know, I think even when I was writing fiction, you know, I got my start as a fiction writer, but I think true crime's always been with me. And I really cite that to my grandfather, who was very into true crime. And, you know, this is way before true crime had its renaissance, and, you know, everyone's doing true crime now. And this is years ago when I was 12 years old. He allowed me to read Helter Skelter, which I probably had no business reading at 12, but I was like, it was just like shocking. And like, I think it kind of like I was able to glimpse into this new world. And, you know, I've always loved reading true crime. So it wasn't like, hey, I'm going to jump from fiction to true crime. It's just like, you know, I just, it was always in me, I think. And when I talk about Laura and Ashley and their story, it's really from an author's point of view. And that was how I went into it in the beginning. It's not how I left it, but when I went into it, it was strictly from a writer's point of view. And I said, this is one hell of a story. And it just so happened to be nonfiction. That's how I feel. But what initially attracted to me, it was the setting. It was these quote unquote characters. It was the way they talked. It was the plot twist. I mean, it had all the makings of a great story. And, you know, from a writer's point of view, I do think it is one of the most fascinating true crime stories I've ever heard. It's one of the most wildest stories I've ever heard. And I feel very happy. You know, I feel very blessed that the family let me write it. That all said, even though I came to it from a storytelling point of view, I didn't leave it from as an author. I mean, over the years, I became very attached. I became very close I'm still close with the families. Very close. You know, they've kind of adopted me. Oklahoma's kind of adopted me now. So like, even though I went in there to write a story, I learned so much from the experience. And, you know, since then, you know, now I'm working in news writing, true crime news writing, which is another unforeseen thing. And I absolutely love it. And I'm just learning and learning and learning. And I feel very, fortunate to be in a place where I can tell other people's stories, because I love fiction and I still write fiction on the side. I really do. But I really love telling other people's stories, especially stories that aren't being well told or, you know, not getting as much publicity and awareness as I think they should. And I think that was the case for Laura and Ashley. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I ramble. You'll have to stop me, John.
No, you're fine. You're fine. And it seems, you know, like you'd mentioned, because I know you said you still write fiction on the side, and I know that you write screenplays and things that you've had things featured on like the Blacklist and
Mm-hmm.
things of that nature. So I think it's, again, I grew up playing music. So, you know, I grew up in bars and stuff when I was, you know, 15, 16. And
we're a lot alike.
Yes. And I feel like writing is a lot like playing music, and the fact that, you know, you say like I'm a writer or I'm a musician, but there is so many different things to love. Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you play me. Are you a singer songwriter? Are you a jazz musician? Are you a fiction writer? Are you a nonfiction writer? You know, like, are you a historian? It's this big umbrella that holds so much underneath it, and it feels like it's so easy to fall in love with so many different parts of it. So I think that's really cool that, you know, you're not kind of labeling yourself as like, I'm Jax Miller now, the true crime writer, but I like to write. I'm going to do.
I'm just here to write, baby. That's how I feel. Kind of like music. You know, I don't stick to one type. I like it all. Films, I like it all. You know, and it's funny that you mentioned films earlier, like when you were talking about some of the scenery in Hell in the Heartland, because that is truly what inspires me is film and music, more so than books. You know, I grew up not reading as much as I probably should have. I grew up with movies. I had a father with Asperger's, and his thing was always watching movies. So ever since I was 4 years old, every weekend was at the movies. And, you know, I still do that every weekend. I'm at the movies. It's something I do. In fact, today I'm introducing my nieces to Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. I love getting people excited about film. And that's what inspires me to write. I don't write the way, at least I don't attempt to write the way other people write. I write how I see it in a movie, if that makes sense. Like I have to have the music on, like a soundtrack in my head that invokes the mood. And then I have to see it like in my picture screen in my head. And then only do I write it down. Film is my passion more than anything.
That blows my mind. And I think it speaks to maybe why I connect with your work so much. But my dad, that was like the basis of our whole relationship was like, yes, he took me to see Half Baked in the movie theater whenever that, again, it must've been around the same time. I must've been like 6th or 7th grade.
Yeah.
But, he took me to when you mentioned the Christopher Nolan trilogy, when the original Batman with Michael Keaton came out, like he took me to see that.
That was my first movie, 1989.
Yeah. That's so I'm like 4 years old. And my dad said, the whole 2 weeks after, I was just like, wait till they get low to me. Wait till they get low to me. But,
yeah, I told you we have a lot in common. Yeah, I mean, I'm a total film buff. And, that's what really helps me write. It's like I have a scene in my head that I can't get out. I see it like a movie in my head, and I write it. That's what I do. That's how my creative process works, everyone. And when I need inspiration, I just watch the films. That's what I do.
Yeah, it's I find that to be very, very interesting because, again, kind of what I was saying is like it definitely plays out. Like, there's a section in the beginning of the book where you're talking about they're dropping a pat of butter into their coffee and stir, and I'm just I know people who do that. So it's like you're seeing it, and it's very like you can smell what the air would smell like, and I don't know. Like I said, I'm a fan of what you do. I did kind of want to talk people, obviously go get the book, watch the series, but for people who may not be familiar with the story, it was December 29th, 1999. It's Welch, Oklahoma. A mobile home, is up in flames. A neighbor calls it in. What I think it was like 4 a.m. or something. They're on the way to work. And they call it in. And when they get there, they find a body. There's a gunshot wound. That's the only thing they find initially. And it turns out that there was, a birthday party there. 2 girls are now missing. I guess what I wanted to ask you about is, this kind of, when the investigators first get there, it seems like it is botched from the beginning. And is that the sense that you, when you're learning about the story, I'm wondering if you were like me, where I'm like, what the fuck were they doing? Because how is it? Because, again, I don't want to give everything in the book away, but the second body is found by the community who's just like, we're going to go look and see if we can figure out what happened to these girls and and then they end up finding Danny Freeman. So when you're learning about this, I was infuriated. I was like, what are these fucking people doing? So I didn't know if as you're going through, if you're having some of those similar feelings.
Yes. I think that's what attracted me in the first place. You have this house fire. They find Kathy Freeman's body. It was initially assumed that Danny, her husband, had taken the girls. Someone made a report that they'd seen Danny with the 2 girls. He was holding them hostage. And, Laura was sleeping over the night before for Ashley's birthday. So Laura's family shows up 24 hours later. They're back at the crime scene with the break of dawn to try to find clues. Maybe they left something behind. Where did the girls go? Where did Danny take the girls? And within minutes, they find a second body. And this is after police released the scene the day before on that first day. And it was a total, it was a total what the fuck moment. And I think that's what really caught my attention at first. I was just like, what? Like, I'd never heard of such a thing. And, you know, as I got deeper and you learn that this story has so many layers, too many layers, you know, in a way. And, but that was definitely what initially caught my attention for sure, was the way police or authorities handled things or mishandled things. And I know that the Bibles really stress the importance of not focusing too much on the mishandling of the case, the possibility of corruption with the case, because I think they want to keep the focus on finding the girls. They don't want to focus on that because they fear it'll take attention away from finding the girls. And that was something that, you know, I really had to stop and listen to what they wanted, because this is their story, not mine. And I really had to stop and listen to that, because when I first came to the story, I was like, let's crucify these mothers. And like, I was like, let's, like, you know, and, you know, it took some time, but when I really started hearing them, I had to take a step back and evaluate and like, you know, really just recheck myself and my role in this story, my very, very small role in this story, and really listen to the families. And you also have two families that are looking at two different, you know, from two different angles at the same tragedy. And, you know, the Freemans are looking at the police corruption angle, and the Bibles are like, oh, we just want to plans and their wishes. I'm sorry, I'm rambling again. There I go. Stop me.
No, you're okay. No, but I think that's a very interesting point too, because you know, I'm a fairly new dad. My kid is 3 years old. She's still got that new baby smell on her. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, and there's stuff that I used to watch. It did not faze me at all. And now that I'm a dad, there's stuff that I'll watch and I'll be like, oh, this it's hard for me to get through. And watching Laureen and Jay just searching for their daughter and seeing, you know, because it's hard because, you know, Danny, his family, they don't, unfortunately their lives were taken the night of the event. So, you know, you don't get to see or experience, you know, what they would be going through. And it feels like a lot of it felt like the weight for both of the girls falls on Laura's parents, you know, and watching that, I was just like, because they're not just focused on bringing Laura home, but they want to know what happened to their, it seems like they're crusading for both of the girls. And as a parent, number one, it's heartbreaking to think that you ever have to be in that situation, but then to say, hey, not only am I in the situation, but like, I'm going to take on the crusade for those who can't, because I want to bring their daughter home as badly as I want to bring mine. I can't imagine like the strength and the like compassion, because, you know, like part of me would be like, this is your fault. Like whatever you were into, this is what, you know, it'd be very hard not to carry that like anchor of anger and like, and resentment towards them. But they seem to do such a great job at just being like, no, we have to bring these girls home in any way that we can. And I don't know if that, like, that was something that you sensed in your time interviewing with them and you know,
sure,
doing the documentary, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what makes them so exceptional. I can't imagine being in those family situations, but I probably wouldn't be that strong. I'd probably, you know, I don't see myself handling it as well as Laureen has. And I've said this to her. I'm like, you know, how do you do it? And I know a huge part of it is her faith in God. She has a strong support system. And I've said to her, I don't think I can be as strong. And she's like, honey, you don't know how strong you are till you have to be. Like, she never saw an option of not being strong. Like, it's always been like, move, search. And, you know, I think the Freemans, you know, I think I understand both families, and it's not like one's better than the other or anything like that. I just think that the Freemans have a different approach. They're not, you know, I think that they just kind of keep to themselves in their grief. And again, there's no wrong way. I just think that they come from two very different approaches. But Lorena is definitely more in the forefront. She's, you'll see her in the news more often. And I mean, she fights for Ashley just like they fight for Laura. And they were best friends for years, is why they'd been friends since diaper age, And but Lorene, she's a true hero. Always has been. She always has been. And I'm happy that comes through in the book because she really is.
Yeah, she's I think, seeing her in the docuseries too was just like, I don't know, you just see like how determined she is. She's just like, I'm going to get this done, and we're going to search in as many places as we can. That's the other thing too. I mean, there was people who came out and falsely took credit for this, saying that they had done that. And then, they're leading them on goose chases, like looking in mines in Kansas, like abandoned mine shaft and stuff, just to find out that they actually, had absolutely nothing to do with it. And, just wanted to, from what I understand from the book and the docuseries, was just like, yeah, I'm just trying to get a day pass to like get some, fresh air for the day, get out of, prison for something else that I've done. Right. And so just to be able to like continue to power through that and be like, okay, that happened, but like, what do I do now? I think is just so incredible to see that. I wanted to ask you this. What was it like for you? Because I have to admit, and I was watching the docuseries and I found myself actually laughing a couple of times, and not like laughing at the content, but the contrast between, you being from New York. Like I have friends from New York. I work with people from New York. Like I'm from Michigan. I live down south. People are like, man, you talk like so harsh. Like you know what I mean? Like all your consonants are super harsh. And so for someone like you who's born and raised in New York and now you are like embedded in Oklahoma, I kept thinking about that. I think it was like Chi-Chi salsa or whatever. They don't make salsa in New York City. Like that's what I kept thinking about in my head.
I love Oklahoma. It was a new world, but they've adopted me, and since the book and the show, I've been back several times. I plan on going again. It's really made an impression on me, and I'll be going back soon because I miss it. I'm a sucker for their food and their hospitality. I love Oklahoma. I really do.
Well, I was wondering, like, did that happen right away, or like when you got there? Because I can imagine in a community like that, there's an element of like, we want to get the story out because we want to find these girls, but there may also be an element of like, you're an outsider and like, we are this community. So do you like, was it when you came down there and you explained what you wanted to do, did people kind of welcome that with open arms, or was there some hesitation at first? Like, did you like have to gain that trust and kind of integrate yourself into that group?
It was really a mixed bag. Like for the Bibles, they let me in right away. Other people like Dwayne Vansel, who's Danny Freeman's brother, it took several years. And, we get along great now. Now we go to the casino together, but, it just takes time. I think persistence is so important in true crime writing, which was something new to me. I never had to knock on doors and call people and be persistent before. And so that was new to me. What was I going to say? I think the people that were put off by me, it wasn't because I was a New Yorker, it was because I was a writer. And I think a lot of people think, oh, she's going to make millions and profit and this and that. And I think that's, it's a reputation I have to kind of show them, like, no, guys, like my heart's in it. And that's hard to prove. And I get that. And, I think it took time for the Bibles to trust me. I think I have their trust now. But it took a long time to see that I was really in this for the long haul. But that was why people were a little put off by me. It wasn't because I was an outsider in their community necessarily. It was just because I was a writer, and then a lot of them were like, I don't know if I want to talk to a writer. I'm scared of what they're going to put. It comes with a lot of hesitation from people on the inside. So that was the real hurdle, I think.
And what year did you start writing the book?
2014.
2014. Okay. Because
that's when I started researching. I didn't start like officially writing, but that's when I like reached out to the Bibles and everyone else. Yeah.
Okay.
14 or 15.
Yeah. Because nobody, Ronnie Busick, and again, I don't want to go through like, I want people to read it and I don't want to give like the whole story away, but the person who was convicted for this, they weren't convicted until what was it, 2020, right? So
yes,
do you think any of it as well with you being down there is like, number one, we don't want somebody to come like kind of be a cash cow off of this tragedy, but number two, like whoever did this is still out there at that point. So do you think there was any hesitation there as far as like, I don't really know who I want to be talking to because, you know, this person we still don't know who's responsible for this.
Right. And when I came in this, Ronnie Busick wasn't a suspect. Remember, they didn't arrest him until after I was there for a few years. I don't know if my book had anything to do with that. I think the timing was good. You know, around the time I came into the story was around the time the DA's investigator Gary Stansel came to it with OSBI agent Tammy Ferrari, who was one of the first people I met on this story. And you know, I think the timing was good, and they started, you know, really investigating the story. I know the family is very happy with them, and I came around like the same time. You know, I don't know month for month who came first, but it was around the same time. And, you know, I was looking into the work, but at that point, there were no suspects. I think Jeremy Jones, who is on death row now in Alabama, he was the prime suspect for many years. But then when the arrest happened in 2018 and they named Busick and the other people, you know, it was harder to access law enforcement because now they're like, oh shit, there's an arrest. You know, we have to watch what we say now. And, you know, they really wanted to get their case in order before they talk to me. So that's why like people like Stansel, I don't think Stansel was in the book. And I talk to him now, you know, but just not in the book because they had to make sure that they could work their case against Busick. So I had to give a lot of, you know, I had to stand back a little bit while they did their case. Because the last thing I wanted was, you know, oh, Jax Miller fucked up the case because she was doing this. And there was always that in the back of my head. Like, I'm like, okay, what is this going to jeopardize, you know, the charges against him? Is this going to jeopardize a possible arrest? So there was always working with that. But that didn't come until a couple years after I was already into this story.
And that brings up an interesting point because I'm wondering, like, you know, you're there essentially, even when you're writing, you know, because I'm sure that you didn't go into this being like, I'm going to write this book and then CNN's HLN is going to be like, let's do a docuseries about this. And I'm going to be in front of the camera. I'm sure that wasn't, you know, like when you took interest in the story, like that's not how you saw it playing out. But as somebody who is there and you're documenting what is happening and you're putting together the facts so that you can tell this story, is that like a fear, or maybe fear is the wrong word, but is that something that you have to be like cognizant of to say like, hey, I'm here to observe. Like I'm telling the story, but I'm not, you know, I don't want to interfere with how it plays out in any way. Is that like a line that you kind of have to balance? Cause I'm sure spending time with the Bibles and, you know, like you said, Danny Freeman's brother is very prominent in the docuseries. Like these are people that you have formed relationships with and friendships on certain levels and things like that. Is it hard to just sit back and just say, I have to remember I'm here to just document what's going on?
Well, you know, it's weird because I don't think anyone anticipated that there was going to be an arrest. I mean, because this was like, it's like when I came into the story, it was 16 years after, you know, someone had killed, you know, the Freemans and abducted the girls. So it's like 16 years later, you don't anticipate an arrest. So it's like going into it, I thought this was like a story. I would tell this past story. I had no idea that it was about to become a current story. Do you know what I mean? Right. It was like, whoa. So I don't think anyone was really ready for that. And I remember getting the call when they're like, you know, we made an arrest, and it was like, holy fuck, what? And I'll never forget that call. I remember, and then another call came, and then another call came, and I was like, Jesus. But, you know, and again, I think it was just so unprecedented. And, you know, I guess most writers would take a step back, but at that point I was already so, you know, into this with the family, and they've always let me in. And, you know, I kind of rode this ride with them. Now, of course, I didn't have any of the emotional investment like they did. So I'm not saying I did like that, but, you know, I was very honored to be a part of this, you know, this section of the story and this journey for them. You know, they invited me to the courthouse when they sentenced Ronnie. They invited me to searches and things like this. And that was really, it was special to be able to share that with them. And, you know, it also, I think, helped me tell their story better. So it was an incredible, unprecedented experience for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I don't know. I imagine when, you know, because again, you don't write about something like this. You don't spend time on a project like this and unless you have a level of investment that goes beyond, like, you know, the normal person who just reads the news, you know what I mean? So it's like, what was that like for you being at the court? Because like the thing that I struggled with a little bit is, you know, like Busick was arrested. He was convicted. The other two gentlemen who you know were alleged to be a part of it had passed away, you know, well before he was arrested. And I think the part that I struggle with is, okay, yes, now we know, like, we know what happened. This person is arrested. We know that he played a part in it with these other two, but then at the end of the day, you still don't know where these girls are to bring them home. You know what I mean? So is that something that, like, because it's essentially like you have a win, but that win is still kind of shadowed by this still looming question of being like, well, that's great that, like, we know this now, but, like, I have to bring them home. So how is balancing that? And I don't know if you could kind of speak on, like, you know, for the Bibles and the Freemans, like, was it that same kind of, that same kind of, like, you know, bittersweet emotion that I'm sorry, I'm rambling now trying to get my
No, I remember asking Lorraine Bible, we were sitting down one day and I said to her, and this is before Busick's arrest, it says, Lorraine, if they catch the guy, will you have closure? And she said, nope. Like, you know, there is no closure. That means nothing to me until I find my child. And that's always been her stance. That will always be her stance. I can guarantee it. You know, and I feel like my job wasn't to go in and find the girls. That's not my job. I'm a writer. And my role was just kind of pointing a light at the story. And, you know, I think it helped a lot. I think it did help more people know, because, you know, it was covered on a regional and local level, but there were plenty of people in Oklahoma who still hadn't heard the story. I mean, it's kind of unbelievable that this wasn't a bigger story than it was. So that's all I wanted to do was help in some way. And I think it has helped bring attention. And I really do believe in my heart of hearts that there are people who know where the girls are. I wholeheartedly believe that people in Chitopa, Kansas, if you're listening, I think one of you know something. You know, I totally believe that. And I don't know what it's going to take to let that person or people come forward. Sorry, the sun is like it's glaring off a window. So
no, you're fine.
I don't know what it's going to take, if it's a deathbed confession or somebody getting clean, because we are dealing with a community, you know, ravished with methamphetamines, as far as the suspects go. They're in that circle. So I don't know what it'll take, but, you know, if writing a book or participating in a series, if that helps, you know, more people come forward, that's a wonderful thing. You know, that's a wonderful thing. And, you know, the book's all done. The show's all done, but, you know, I still help where I can. And I asked Lorraine, like, you know, what can I do? And, you know, it's just, everyone just keeps fighting until those girls are found.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you this because, you know, you're writing the book and then this docuseries comes along, and it's not just like, it's like, what was that feeling like when CNN comes in and says, like, hey, we want to do this docuseries about the work that you were doing? So I guess my question is, like, number one, did you have any hesitation at all? And did the family have any hesitation at all? Because, you know, I think there's a difference between like, okay, like Jax is here, I'm going to talk to Jax about what's going on, to now, like, I'm going to be sitting down in front of a camera and I'm going to know that like this is going to be on TV and you know, like I'm sure for the family there is like some sense of vulnerability to that. But when you found out that they wanted to do that series, what was the reaction like for you?
You know, I think I went around it an unorthodox way because the first time I went out there was not with CNN, but I'd hired a personal, just a single cameraman to come do footage because I really wanted footage of stuff because I knew I was writing the book. I started writing the book first. And at that point I was living in Ireland and I showed it to my agents in the UK and I says, hey guys, like, you know, I'm writing this book. It's a true crime. I'm veering away from fiction for a little bit. And they said, this would make a fantastic series. And I says, well, let me, you know, talk to the family about it. And the family's always been very, you know, very open, just anything to get the girls' faces out there. So the book, the series came out before the book, even though I started the book first. So what I did was I started working on these pitches with my agent, what we call a deck. And it was like a lookbook and synopsis and photos and, you know, people were interviewing and some of the B-roll footage from the original stuff. And I put it all together and I gave it to my agent and in the UK. And my literary agent sent it to an unscripted TV agent. And then she started pitching. So we had a lot of meetings with a lot of different people. And eventually it was picked up by Stephen David Productions here in New York City. And, you know, again, they pitched it to several people and it finally landed with HLN. So, you know, it wasn't a shock. It wasn't like, you know, CNN or, you know, HLN knocked on my door. Like we were actively pitching it. So that's how that came to life. And I was hoping to have the book done by then, but then everything started happening like in real time, like with the arrests and, you know, news of the photographs and what was found in the sheriff's office and all this stuff. So it didn't work out as planned, but, no, the family was very open to everything. They were on board with everything. And I let them in so much, probably more than any other author I've met. Like I really, guys, is this accurate? Read this. And like really no sentence went into the book without going through them first. They were my first go-to. I mean, even before my publishers, I went to the Bibles and Freeman's first. And I'm very thankful for that. I really am. I think it was an interesting, unique experience that a lot of authors don't have. But it was a good experience.
And I guess like, because one thing that really compelled me, or one thing that I found really compelling in the docuseries was your willingness to, I mean, you were in some pretty sketch situations and you were talking to some pretty sketch people. Like, again, I don't want to give it away, but
you don't even know.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, I grew up right outside Detroit, Michigan. So, you know, when I was in high school, kids smoked pot, the rich kids did cocaine, and then the hippie kids did like mushrooms and like LSD. You know, that was like the drugs that we had, you know what I mean? And I moved to Tennessee and now I'm right outside Nashville. And like, I did not realize what an issue like prescription pills were. I didn't realize that like people were cooking methamphetamine in their, you know, I have a family member. She does not cook meth, but she's on a watch list. She's not allowed to buy like Dayquil or NyQuil because her allergies are so bad. She's bought so much of it. She's on a watch list and they won't let her buy it. Yeah. She has to,
you got to watch out for.
She has to like have people go buy like allergy medicine for, but it's like, I just didn't understand that. You transplanting down here. So when you get into someplace like Oklahoma where these girls have gone missing, there is, you know, reason to believe that it has to do with, you know, bad drug deals or people owing, you know, people money for drugs. And then, you know, like I said, I don't want to give it away, but you're in the series and the pink house, you know, like just watching, I was like, dude, I wouldn't want to be in that neighborhood at noon, let alone at like 3 a.m. Cause it looks like where every like detective show is like, this is where this person was murdered. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So looking back, like, did it feel like that in the moment, or looking back on it, is that when, like, was there any sense of like, oh shit, like I really put myself at, like, I could have been at risk in some of these situations?
No, I felt it then. And now that I look back, it's more the opposite. Like, oh, it wasn't that bad. But, it was so funny that you mentioned the pink house, because the whole crew was there and we didn't hear about it till like that day. Like, it wasn't in like any of the notes. Like, no one had heard of this pink house. And it's like, we were talking to one of the sources on the show, and she's like, yeah, go to the pink house. And I'm like, what is this place? How come we haven't heard about this place? And we went that day. And this wasn't in the show, but there was a black cat all around it. And it was the middle of the daytime and it was sunny out. And I'll never forget, all of a sudden these tornado sirens go off. Oh, and I says, we're not supposed to be here, guys. Like, we're not supposed to be here. No, I definitely found myself in sticky situations, and a lot of them didn't, weren't in the show, of course, because like the show, it's liability. We can't go into the meth labs in the show and stuff like that. But even though I begged them to. But anyway, I'm kidding. But the book has more of that stuff. And I was, I felt fortunate. I had some fantastic people supporting me. And as far as the whole meth underworld, like, you remember characters like Cowboy from the series, he's dead now.
Yeah, I saw that he had passed away.
Yeah, he was murdered. And anyway, he was always helping me. Jax, let me show you this. And Jax, let me show you that. And it was a brand new world, because I'm a Yankee and we don't have meth here either. We don't. I've never seen meth. I mean, outside Breaking Bad, which is like my favorite show of all time, by the way. But outside Breaking Bad, I knew nothing about meth. So I had a lot of these people like Cowboy and other people I can't name that, really, it's like, hey, show me here. Who's carrying a gun? Let's go. It was like a lot of that. But, looking back, I learned a lot. And I'm very thankful, but it was a different world for sure.
Yeah, it's like I tell my family up north all the time that there was enough culture shock just moving from Michigan to Tennessee, but then I can't imagine that culture shock to be like, yeah, I'm going down to Oklahoma and I'm embedding myself with, like all these crazy meth dealers and people that are super dangerous. Like, so wish me luck, But
I love that, because I actually love learning about people. I love learning about different cultures. I love seeing different parts of the world. I travel a lot. I travel extensively because I love seeing different places around the world. So it was kind of exciting. I hate to say it like that, but it was very eye-opening, and it was different. I can't say I would 100% do it again, but it was and even in this underbelly where there was a lot of drug dealers and people all caught up in that game, there were some wonderful people too I got to meet, and I'm very thankful for those people, and they really taught me a lot. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah. Well, and like even with Cowboy, you know what I mean? Like especially as a writer, I mean, I remember seeing him on the show and being like, this dude's a character. Like this guy
he is.
Like
I miss him.
I'm sure he had we all know those kind of people that like you go out to get a beer with them or something, or like, you go out to eat with them or something like that. And like, that they're going to have stories, and they're
yes, that was him. He was the best. And he was always so funny. He's like, Jax, can you make me have more hair in the book? Can you make my voice a little deeper? Hey, name me Dusty, will you? He always had these ideas. He was such a character, and he would tell me stories. And he was clean. He'd cleaned up his act since being he was a big hitter in the meth game back in the day. And what did they used to call him? He was known for traveling with meth and cooking, like, anyway. Let me shut up. But he was very well known. But he'd cleaned up his act, and he had all the stories. Oh, he was so fun.
I wanted to ask you this because you go down, you travel to Oklahoma, and you go down there knowing that you're covering like this tragedy and this still like unsolved, like we know who did it, but they're still not home, and they're still actively searching. and we're going to link the Facebook page in the show notes so that if people want to like help or get involved, or heaven forbid, if somebody is listening and does know something, you can leave a tip or let the family know. But you travel down here, and I'm sure you're going in, it's heavy subject matter. So looking back at it now, and in these relationships that you have, and then again, meeting somebody like Cowboy, sometimes is it kind of hard to balance, like, because it really does seem like meeting these people and having these relationships, even though there's still such a big part of the story that's unsolved, that it has brought like a level of joy to you to be able to know these people and be a part of these people's lives. So is it ever like a double-edged sword kind of moment where it's like, I really want these girls to come home, but like, I also, like, without this happening, I wouldn't know these people or know their stories or things like that?
I mean, of course, I would give every relationship back if those girls were found in a heartbeat, like, no doubt about it. I can't change that. I believe that we're put in people's lives for a reason and a season. I really do believe that. I just happen to have a long season in Oklahoma. I still talk to the family a lot. I spend Christmas with them. We're just, I've been going through some hard times. I call them, they're there for me. We're very much like, I grew so close to them. And I think it's a lot of, we're very different people, but we share a lot of the same core beliefs and stuff. So of course I would give it all back in a heartbeat if it could find the girls. But I do think, I really do think that we met for a reason. And I think that I feel very blessed to have them in my lives. I hope they feel the same way about me. And, I'm very thankful for our friendship and our relationship. And, as long as I'm a part of their family, I'll keep fighting alongside them. I'll do whatever I have to help them. So that's how I feel about it.
Well, it's, I don't know. I agree with you. I think, like, we are put into people's lives for specific, like, because I got, even with this conversation, I have to tell you, I've been so nervous, and I think that's probably why I'm rambling, because like I said, I've found your work and was like, this is fucking awesome. Like, I like this so much. So, but like, just getting to know more about you, like, for me, this has been like, has been like the highlight of my 2022 so far. And, and getting to, I think you're right, where we're put into people's lives at certain times for certain reasons. And I think, you getting that support system has been a benefit to you, but then you're, like you said, you're able to shine this national light on, because it's crazy how something like this could happen, and it doesn't get out of like 3, zip codes. You know what I mean? Like, when I right across the street from my house when I was growing up, it's known as a Northville thrill kill, but these teenage kids cut a dude's head off. And it's one of these stories that you would feel like would be national news, but it's like, if you're not from Michigan, you have no idea what it is. You know what I mean? So to be able to use your talent and your skill and this gift that you were able to find to take the story and blow it up on a national level is pretty amazing. And then again, to get the relationships that you've got out of it and things like that, I don't know. The whole thing is very interesting. And if people want to check out the docuseries, it is available now on HBOMax. We're going to put the link in. That's where I found it. I watched all 4 episodes. That's 4. Is it 4, right? 4 or 5?
Yes.
4.
4, yes.
Yeah. I started it and I was like, I got to see what happens to the next one. And I went through all 4 back to back. But for people who might want to know more about you or see more of your work, like, what is the best way for people to do that as far as you're concerned?
Facebook's your best bet. Gosh, I don't even know. Like, Jax Miller. Is it real Jax Miller? or Jax Miller author. I can't remember, but just find me on Facebook.
We'll link the Facebook page.
Okay, yeah. Facebook's the best way. I'm not on Twitter and Instagram as much, but Facebook would be the best way. And if you wouldn't mind putting a link for Find Laura Bible,
of course.
That's created by the Bible family, but it's not just about Laura. It's about Ashley too. They keep the page regularly updated. They post photos, and it is run by what they call the BBI. Actually, I'm wearing their shirt, but it's only coincidence. The BBI, it's Find Laura Bible BBI, and the BBI stands for Bible Bureau of Investigation. I was just wearing it around the house. I saw that coming out of the house earlier. I'm like, oh look, that's perfect. I'll have to show them that. But yeah, so definitely go to the Find Laura Bible page, and whenever they post updates, I usually share. What is it called? Share.
Yeah.
Share.
They did a search again pretty recently. Because I think you shared it on your Facebook page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they had some new people involved in the searches, and they were looking back in picture at one of the properties belonging to one of the suspects. So it was a new search. Unfortunately, it didn't yield anything, but I know that the family's not done searching. I know, Stansel and Ferrari, who are the leads on this case, they're not done searching. So there'll be more to come, I hope. I'm sure.
Well, again, I really wanted to say thank you for hanging out. And like I said, I would like to have you back anytime, and we could talk about it more. For people who are checking out who may not be aware of it, I didn't want to go through the entire timeline because I want people to get the book. I want people to watch the docuseries. I want people to really check out the work, because I think they're going to enjoy it as much as I do. But I just wanted to say thank you for hanging out and spending some time. And
thank you. I really had fun. I really did. Thank you.
No problem. Would you mind hanging around for a second once we wrap up?
Sure.
Awesome. Well, this is episode 71 of the Johnversations Podcast. Another one finished. Please, guys, Hell in the Heartland, get the book, watch the docuseries. You're going to find links for both in the show notes. Please follow Jax on Facebook and check out the Find Laura Bible site if you have any tips, or if you just want to help be involved in what's going on, help bring the girls home. Those are all in the show notes, whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. Go in the notes, click the link. Thank you, guys. We will see you next week.